you guys. This is an extremely impromptu video, which is why I'm not even quite ready for it yet. But I wanted to show you what happens when you do a real painting with watercolor. And also to tell you that my class, the sketch journaling, it's sort of like a warm-up the whole time. The way artists use sketches is their sketchbooks, is they, do drawing, they explore ideas, they practice, they might do a composition and see if it works and if they want to commit to a painting. So they use them in lots of different ways. Can't quite get this high enough so that I have more space. So, and that's kind of what I'm doing. Well, that's what I'm teaching, I guess is what I should say. What I'm teaching is just sketching things and being kind of light and loose about it, and using different drawing tools to add more value and contrast and all that good stuff, and not doing a real watercolor painting. But sometimes in class, I observe that some people seem to be more interested in that. And so I just want to show you what I'm doing and talk a little bit about why the materials you have will not work for this purpose. So I would say that, if exploring this material, if exploring the watercolor and the brushes and the drawing, and because some of you I can tell are pretty into it. And you might just be into like what you're doing, but if you feel like you're into it but you're frustrated with how it's turning out, you might want to think about doing a different type of hobby or a different type of practice in this way. I would, instead of doing the watercolor in the book, I would keep a drawing journal. Then you could just use drawing paper or even sketchbook paper, so it can be a much less heavyweight, less quality paper, and just do pencil drawings. I have a set I can recommend to you. I think I have a link to this on my website, but these are the Staedtler Mars Lumograph pencils. But that part, a lot of the pencils are just fine, so that's not what's important. What's important is in this set you have 6 soft pencils. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't tell if this is working, but oops, sorry. Yeah, so you have 6 different weights of softness. So B means, I think it stands for H. There's H and B. Like this is actually an HB. So H means hard and B means soft. But I think what it actually means is black, because the darker the B, the blacker it gets. Okay, so this set of pencils has really good, unless you're going to do real pencil drawings, you don't need any H's except possibly this one, and you actually don't need this one. 2B is kind of like the lightest. 2B or HB are fine for lighter. 4B and 6B are great for darks, for mid-range. And then actually I even have a 9B. It goes up to at least 12B. But this one's fine. This will get you there. But basically what it does is it allows you to explore drawing and value and shadow without dealing with the color and the brushes and all that stuff, because really you'll have more fun painting if you have some drawing skills. So if I were in your position of somebody who wants to be a little more exploratory with the watercolor, I would keep a sketchbook, a pencil sketchbook, and on, like I said, less quality paper. And then what I would do is I would get kind of a bigger palette. I would get professional grade paint. I would squeeze it out fresh. This isn't fresh, but that's okay. We'll make it work. And yeah, that's what I would do. And then I would get this Canson XL watercolor. It comes in, tablets. I pass it out in class sometimes when I feel like somebody needs a bigger piece of paper, or I want them to try a better paper than the one they've brought. So I've marked off the area where my painting's going to be. All of this is white space or space to test my colors. And so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, but I also want to tell you that these results are not going to be fantastic. Quite frankly, I masked this off it was probably in April, because that's when the Trillium were out. And I kept looking at them, and I just did not know how to render that in an interesting way, because the leaf is really, like, when you look at actually putting it down on a piece of paper, the leaf is the main object. And I just, it's hard to make leaves that big, that interesting. So I just got stuck, and I just had it sitting here. And so tonight I decided, I was kind of cleaning up my art table, seeing what I have going on. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to paint something on this. So the results may not be that fantastic, but what I'm telling you is I'm going to show you kind of what artists do. So first of all, I have a lot of water on a pretty big brush. I could use a bigger brush, but actually I am going to use a bigger brush. Okay, so this is from a Jean Haynes brush. It is a 12 round long. It's humongous. So I'm just going to get it really drenched with water. And then I'm just going to wet the whole back side of this. Now, what I probably should have done is masked off some more areas. But since I've already decided I'm really done with this painting, it's been sitting here too long, jamming me up. We're going to let it be our warm-up tonight, is basically what I'm doing. So this paper is super wet. As you can see, it is just absolutely drenched with water, okay? Now, I could let it seep in for a little bit. If I had thicker paper, I'd probably do that. But it'll give me time to come over here and mix up, kind of a darker puddle than I might usually start with. But I already have so much water down here that, I don't know. I just feel like I like it. When I'm doing this wet and wet technique, I like having really juicy paint. Now, the reason I chose this Prussian blue is because it makes beautiful greens. Now, I'm rinsing out my brush in this is my cool cup, and then I'm rinsing it again in my warm cup before I get the yellow, because yellow is a very precious color, and one little molecule of blue will turn it green. So just check this out. Like, look how that is moving. And it'll just keep kind of doing that. And I'm not going to do anything. There's kind of a puddle here. This isn't the best quality paper, but it's a great value for learning. When I started, I bought the expensive paper they said, and it is better paper, no doubt about it. But when you don't really know what you're doing, it just kind of like, it's so expensive that you're like, I don't even want to try. So I found this Canson XL watercolor paper to be a very nice balance of quality and price point. So, yeah, so then the question is, and so if I can move that around and that will pool. Sometimes I like that. Sometimes it's a bit much. But the thing is, if I disturb this, like if I could use this as a sponge, just wring it out and go and pull that up. And sometimes I will do that. But I recommend not at this stage, if this is what you're doing. Just let it pool. It's gonna do weird things because it's gonna push the pigment around, and so it'll make those cauliflower things. It's just cool background, I'm already thinking this is pretty cool, and I wish I had masked off some more areas, but I didn't. And so I have a cheap piece of paper. I can just do this again after I finish this one. so anyway, so I was going to put down, you know, maybe another color, but I'm frankly really liking what's happening here. And these other colors were for some leaves that I did, and they don't really go with the trillium thing. So I'm thinking I'm just going to let these blend and make greens and kind of do their thing. Oh, actually, you know what I am going to do? But actually, okay, so now I'm going to put away that humongous brush, because now I really just want to kind of add some concentrated dots of color. While it's, because right now it's still wet. I'm letting my brush soften a little bit. It's still wet, as you can see. So as long as I have that, whoa, well, okay, so now I don't like that. And let me tell you why. But first I have to concentrate. Okay, the reason I didn't like that and I decided to clean it up is because when it starts going back and forth like that, it just kind of turns to mud. It doesn't stay like even right here, it's kind of becoming like a weird green, which I'm fine with. But, you know, now that I know that I'm going to do some more stuff, I didn't like how that was running too much. And the colors will go back and forth and just make something kind of ugly. Not too ugly because I've stayed in a theme here. But if I'd add some red, which is a complement of the green, then we could really start to get some ugliness. I mean, some might call it can be just neutral colors, and that's an important thing. But it can also just kind of start to look ugly. So I'm just kind of, you probably couldn't see that because my hand was in the way. But I'm just kind of, let's get a little bit more of that stuff. Just kind of dropping some darker color. And I wouldn't mind a little bit more contrast, because that's going to be white when I pull this out. So then I can look and see, can I get contrast anywhere else? Yeah, actually I can. So all of those are still wet. So I'm just going to drop, that might be too much. I might have not needed to surround it, but oh well. I'll see how it looks when I'm done. So now I'm again getting where this is just kind of pooling back and forth, and I'm not super into that. So I'm just going to squeeze out my brush like this, or you can squeeze it on a sponge, and I'm just going to kind of pick some of this up. If you have a synthetic brush, or actually most of the synthetic brushes, you might need to just squeeze it out by hand or on a paper towel. But don't do too much of that. That's only for when I need to, either I want it to dry faster, and so I don't want to wait for that whole puddle. This I'm fine, because I'm just going to go like make some food, maybe watch a show, you know, like I don't really care how long this takes to dry. It's kind of like a present to come back to like later tonight. Like, oh, well, let's see what's going on with my watercolor now. Which also makes me think about making the hobby convenient so that you can do it, but that's not possible for everybody. But well, actually it is possible for everybody, but not everybody is lucky to have a whole room that they have taken over with watercolors and a huge table. But anyway, we'll talk more about that too. So I think that's it for now. Oh, actually, okay, so this is what I also think is kind of interesting, is even as I'm talking to you, things are moving. So I thought I had left that pretty dark behind there, but the water's moving, the color is moving, the wet color is looking for water. And so it just keeps looking until it bumps up against a hard edge. So like down here, I'm getting a little bit of a hard edge because some of this yellow was already dry. And so the blue dots that I dropped are moving, but they're finding that space. Now, listen, this is probably going to become something that's sort of abstract based on the idea of a trillium. So I'm totally down with all of this stuff. I don't care that this is dry. Now, but I will say that is when you have better paper, the paper does not buckle like this is. It doesn't dry unevenly. You wouldn't have a stripe of dry down here. where this was so wet. So, you know, that's why people like those better papers. And when you're doing a real painting and you're kind of like more of a real artist, all of those factors are really important. But I'm just still kind of having just fun, you know? And I feel like I have more fun when I haven't spent so much money on a piece of watercolor paper. I'll just be honest. Well, and actually, the other thing I really like about the Canson is I usually have some ink on my paper, and those watercolor papers will not let you cannot use a pen on them. They're so, well, I guess the hot press you can, but I don't like hot press. Hot press, like, I don't know. I have not figured out what is going on when I put paint to paper, if it's hot pressed watercolor paper. So I usually get cold press. There's hot press, cold press, and rough. And I usually get cold press because it's kind of in between. It has a bit of a tooth to it. But hot press would be better for what I do because I like to add ink afterwards at some point. So anyway, so that is the start of our watercolor painting, whatever this is going to be. I didn't show the masking part, but I have videos on masking. And, you know, basically it just kind of shows you the fun of what is going on with where the paint is actually doing a lot of the work. Yeah. So anyway, I'll show you kind of the next step, but I wanted to just kind of show you this part because this is like the fun background this is why people start falling in love with watercolor, is when they have the materials that are adequate to let their paint do this. All right. I hope you have a good night. Oh, and don't forget to like my video.